Breaking, and I mean stop scrolling, drop your phone, back up the clip breaking. Because the curse everybody laughed at 6 months ago just walked into daylight wearing 3 misdemeanors, $500,000 in unpaid rent, and a booking photograph so fresh the ink has not dried. Two-Tone tried to warn the whole internet. Two-Tone stood on a live and said it plain. Anybody who signs their name next to Claressa Shields better read the fine print, because the ink on that page comes with a shadow contract. Everybody clowned him. Everybody laughed. Everybody said Two-Tone was doing the most. Well, guess who is not laughing tonight? Charlamagne Tha God just got dragged out of his own dispensary like a bad tenant, $500,000 behind on his lease, and the eviction paper is dated in the exact same week Charleston White got hauled into a Texas jail cell, wearing 3 misdemeanors like a starter kit. 2 names, 1 news cycle. And if you thought that was a coincidence, front row family, take a seat, because we are about to walk this whole thing down brick by brick, receipt by receipt, and by the time we get to the last name on the list, you're going to be typing in the comments like your keyboard owes you rent money. This is not gossip. This is not shade. This is a documented pattern that keeps repeating itself in high definition, and the only reason you have not seen it clearly yet is because everybody in the room has been too busy staring at the sparks to notice the fuse. Welcome back to the show that everybody watches, but nobody admits they watch. We serve the plates that everybody else drops. No name is too big. No receipt is too old. No story is off the table. Pull up a chair, pour something warm, and let this one unfold in front of you. Because tonight, we are not talking about one arrest. We are not talking about one eviction. We are not even talking about one broken relationship. We are talking about a pattern, a running, breathing, receipt-stamping pattern. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once the shape of it lands in your chest, you will start noticing it in every headline, every live stream, every airport paparazzi photo, every sources close to article that drops from now until the end of the calendar year. Let me set the table. Months ago on this very channel, I said something out loud that made a lot of you slide into my comments swinging. I said it looks like every single person who steps into Claressa Shields' orbit ends up losing something they cannot easily get back. A reputation, a relationship, a radio slot, a dispensary, a driver's license, a public cosign. I said it looks like Claressa Shields is walking around town holding what I am calling the reverse blessing, and the receipts keep filing themselves at the front desk without her lifting a finger. And back then, half of y'all told me I was reaching. Half of y'all told me I was jealous. Half of y'all told me to leave that woman alone and mind my own bakery. A few of y'all told me I was flat wrong and I should retract the whole thesis. Well, look at the shelf now, front row family, because the receipts are stacked so high the counter is buckling, the register drawer will not close, and the manager on duty is Charleston White in a Collin County jumpsuit. Let's start with Charleston White, because Charleston White walked himself into the middle of this story wearing a neon vest and holding a bullhorn. According to public records out of Collin County, Texas, Charleston White got booked on a stack of 3. Unlawful carrying of a weapon, possession of marijuana under 2 ounces, and driving a motor vehicle without a valid license. 3 charges. 1 night. 1 booking photo. And of course, the man himself did what he always does. He ran to his phone before he ran to a lawyer. Charleston White logged onto social media and told the whole world he was already about to be free in a couple of hours because he was going to give the police, and I am quoting, some names. Read that back with me. Charleston White said he was about to hand out names. And you know what? Charleston White was telling the truth for once. Charleston White walked out of that Texas jail within 24 hours, and Charleston White came out talking sideways to anybody with a microphone, a phone camera, or a working data plan. Now here is where it flips, because Charleston White wants you to believe he beat the system. But the paper trail says something completely different. Let me walk you through Charleston White's rap sheet. Because Charleston White's rap sheet is the length of a grocery receipt from a family of 6 on Thanksgiving weekend. December of 2023, Charleston White got booked in Texas on 1 count of animal cruelty and 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and the bond on that stack came in at $31,000. Roll it forward. October of 2024, Charleston White got booked again in Tarrant County, Texas, this time on animal cruelty and aggravated assault charges. And the underlying allegation was that Charleston White pepper sprayed a domestic cat and brandished a firearm in a public setting. Roll it forward again. February of 2025, Charleston White gets picked up in the Fort Worth area on aggravated assault charges that end up dropped a few days later. And now, in this current news cycle, Charleston White is back in the booking room, back on the phone, back on the timeline, telling everybody he walked into that jail with the bail money already tucked in his own pocket like a man who bought a season pass. At 49 years old. Let that number sit with you for a second. 49. And listen, I have to say this next part carefully, because I do not want any of you thinking I am dragging a man for his past. If Charleston White wants to run around the internet calling himself untouchable, that is his personal choice. But we cannot pretend the tape does not exist. Charleston White has openly said, on multiple cameras, in multiple interviews, that jail and prison are actually some of the best places for a black man from what he calls hood mentality to go and develop into a positive man in society. Charleston White said that. Charleston White said that jail preserves black men's lives so they can live out the back half of their 30s and 40s in peace. Charleston White said that. And Charleston White himself, at 49 years old, keeps signing back up for the development program. So either the school works and Charleston White's transcripts got lost in the mail, or Charleston White is running the same essay through the printer over and over hoping we do not read it twice. Or Charleston White is running a con on the entire internet, and even he is starting to lose track of the plot. Now peep what happens next, because this is where the whole curse conversation swings into frame. A few days before this most recent arrest, Charleston White logged onto every microphone he could find to defend Claressa Shields. Charleston White stood in front of the internet and said the only reason people are riding on Claressa Shields is because Claressa Shields is a dark-skinned black woman. And if Claressa Shields were light-skinned, mixed, or, in Charleston White's exact words, mixed breed, nobody would have a single syllable to say about her. Charleston White said Claressa Shields is everything you would want your dark-skinned daughter to grow up to be. Charleston White said Claressa Shields is a champion, and champions always get pulled at. Charleston White said all the smoke aimed at Claressa Shields is jealousy dressed up like accountability. Charleston White said Claressa Shields being with Papoose is nobody's business because Papoose never finalized a divorce, and, again quoting Charleston White directly, I got a wife and a girlfriend. Sounds like a rock-solid defense, right? Sounds like Charleston White finally used his platform for something bigger than a punchline, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because that same Charleston White has, on separate recorded occasions, on separate podcasts, on separate live streams, sat in front of cameras and explained, in his own vocabulary, that he intentionally chose not to have full black children. Charleston White said he vowed to himself as a young man that he would not put his seed in a black woman. Charleston White said he watched the black couples around him grow up hating each other, and he decided at 21 years old that his kids would be Mexican, or mixed, or white, anything but full black. Charleston White said his own son does not date black women and only pursues, again in Charleston White's words, mulatto, whites, Mexican, everything but black. Charleston White said he is happy about it. Charleston White said black women are not the demographic he is building his household around. Charleston White said, and I want you to hear this clean, that he is not here for his own community. He is here for his biracial children, and the moral message everybody keeps trying to hand him is a burden he did not sign up to carry. So let me ask you, front row family, read it plain. If Charleston White is on public record saying he would not build a life with a dark-skinned black woman, why should any dark-skinned black woman on planet Earth spend 1 second of energy listening to Charleston White defend Claressa Shields? It is not defense. It is theater. It is content. It is Charleston White gaming the algorithm using Claressa Shields' name as the currency, and Charleston White has been open about that too. Charleston White has literally, on tape, on camera, in his own recognizable voice, laughed and admitted he threw Claressa Shields into the conversation on purpose so he could pivot into colorism, drive engagement metrics, and, in his own words, control the algorithm. Charleston White called it checkmate. Charleston White called himself the math teacher. Charleston White said he provokes thought and evokes emotion. Translation? Charleston White admitted, live and in color, in front of thousands of viewers, that Charleston White was trolling the whole time. And boil it down, and this is exactly what the reverse blessing looks like in motion. Because within days of Charleston White using Claressa Shields' name as a bargaining chip for engagement, Charleston White is sitting in a Texas holding cell with 3 fresh misdemeanors stapled to his shirt. The pattern shows up on time, every time, and the pattern does not care whether you believed in the pattern this morning. The pattern only cares whether the paperwork gets filed. And the paperwork got filed. And Charleston White got booked. And Charleston White got released. And Charleston White got right back on his phone acting like he did not just live out the exact prophecy two-tone laid down 6 months ago. Now let me pivot, because you cannot talk about Claressa Shields in 2026 without talking about Latto. And you cannot talk about Latto without asking the question the whole internet is scared to type into a comment box. Charleston White brought Latto into this conversation on purpose. Charleston White pointed at Latto and said, why is nobody dragging Latto for getting pregnant by a married man? Why is nobody dragging Latto for playing house with 21 Savage while his wife is on the paperwork? Why is Claressa Shields the villain and Latto the boss? And to Charleston White's twisted credit, that is a real, uncomfortable, culturally loaded question, even if the man asking it has zero moral standing to be the one holding the microphone. Where this really turns is in the choice each woman made about visibility. Claressa Shields put Papoose on the front page of her entire life. Claressa Shields wore a sticker on her boxing outfits that literally read, "Pap is right here." Claressa Shields walked into every interview with Papoose's name already on her lips before the host could pull it out of her. Claressa Shields refused to hide, refused to blur, refused to soften the picture, refused to pretend the man was just a friend of the family. Latto did the exact opposite. Latto kept 21 Savage in the shadow. Latto never confirmed the marriage. Latto never showed him on her social media. Latto pushed the stroller through the airport by herself. Latto sat down with Angela Yee, looked straight into the camera, and said she has never messed with a married man. And when the follow-up questions came about 21 Savage's marital paperwork, Latto said that is a conversation for him to have, not her. So there are two women, two situations, and two completely different public relations strategies. Claressa Shields chose radical transparency. Latto chose radical silence. And here is the ugly truth nobody in the industry room wants to say out loud. The internet punishes transparency and rewards silence. Claressa Shields told on herself and got branded a homewrecker. Latto stayed quiet and got branded a boss. And Charleston White wants to package that difference as colorism. But read it plain. It is not just colorism. It is confession versus concealment. And the algorithm eats confession for breakfast. And listen, Latto is not sitting there taking Charleston White's mouth quietly. Latto pulled up to the timeline swinging back. Latto called Charleston White a scrawny country dude with the wrong energy in his mouth. Latto told Charleston White to keep her baby's name out of any sentence he opens. Latto reminded Charleston White that Latto is the boss in the room, that Latto is the mother, that Latto is the father, that Latto is the check, and Charleston White is a passenger at best. Latto did not blink. Latto did not soften. Latto did not offer Charleston White a graceful exit from the conversation, because Latto knew Charleston White did not deserve one. And that is the difference in temperament right there. Claressa Shields uses interviews. Latto uses one-liners. But both women are learning the same lesson at the same time, which is that the second your name enters this Claressa Shields orbit, the algorithm becomes a magnet for controversy, and the shadow contract starts drafting itself on your behalf. Which brings us to Atlanta. Because Atlanta is watching this whole play very carefully. Latto has been announced as the walkout artist for Claressa Shields' next fight. Atlanta is asking, out loud, in group chats, on X, on Instagram Live, on the corner, on the podcast circuit. Atlanta is asking why one of their own daughters is walking a woman into the ring who most of the city has publicly turned on. Atlanta stood with Miss Shaikica when Miss Shaikica caught the fat shaming from Charleston White. Atlanta stood with the local voices when Claressa Shields started pushing back against the region. And now Atlanta is watching Latto make a business decision that a large slice of the city is reading as betrayal. There is a rumor circulating that Claressa Shields handpicked Latto for that walkout specifically to prove that Atlanta still messes with Claressa Shields. And there is a competing rumor that Latto took the check because Latto needs the check. Latto gave birth in late May. Latto was back on the Essence Fest stage 6 weeks later. 6 weeks. Maternity leave in this country is legally supposed to be 12 weeks minimum. So the internet is reading that math and asking the question nobody wants to type in daylight. Is Latto broke? Now I am not the accountant. I do not sign Latto's checks. I cannot confirm Latto's balance sheet. But I can confirm that the streets have already reached their own verdict. And the verdict is that Latto is next on the cancellation list if Latto actually walks Claressa Shields into that arena. 2 rumors and 1 shadow contract. Atlanta does not forgive fast, and Atlanta remembers everything. Do you think Atlanta cancels Latto for that walkout? Drop the answer in the comments, because the answer to that question is going to age like milk in a heat wave, and I want to see who called it first. Alright, let me talk to you about Charlamagne, because Charlamagne is where this whole thing stops being funny. Charlamagne is where the reverse blessing stops looking like a coincidence and starts looking like a signed, notarized, court-stamped receipt. The Breakfast Club has hosted Claressa Shields more times than anybody in that studio can honestly count. Every appearance has ended in the exact same pattern. The panel nods along. The panel agrees. The panel does not push back. The panel treats Claressa Shields' relationship framing like it came down from a mountain on stone tablets. And the internet started saying, months ago, that something was off about the whole thing, that the Breakfast Club and Claressa Shields were running a coordinated play, that money was moving under the table, that the agreeable coverage was too consistent to be organic, that Claressa Shields was buying loyalty in $300 increments. I am not saying that theory is true. I want to be clear. I am saying the timing is loud. I am saying the timing is deafening. Because in the last 30 days, Charlamagne Tha God and Raekwon Meigs, the co-founder of the Wu-Tang Clan, got evicted from Hashstoria, their flagship cannabis dispensary, right there on Broad Street in downtown Newark. Public court records show that Charlamagne and his partners were $500,000 behind on their rent. $500,000. $500,000. Not $5,000. Not $50,000. $500,000. The rent on that property ran $23,000 a month, and Charlamagne's operation had not made a single lease payment since April of 2023. Do the math with me. When Hashstoria opened its doors to the public in 2024, Charlamagne was already 19 months behind on the lease before a single customer walked in the store. 19 months. 19. The grand opening celebration had Fat Joe, Method Man, and half the old-school hip-hop Rolodex through the front door, and the check to the landlord was already almost 2 years past due before anybody bought a single gram. Now, some of the coverage tried to spin it. Planning board delays in Newark, initial application denials in 2023, community concerns about renderings that glamorized drug use. All of that is real. All of that actually happened. But planning delays happen to every dispensary in every city in every state, and none of them run 24 months in the red on a $23,000 a month lease without somebody, somewhere, signing a paycheck to keep the lights on. This is not a delay story. This is a bad business story. And Charlamagne, the same Charlamagne who has been sitting behind that Breakfast Club microphone telling black entrepreneurs how to build generational wealth, could not pay the light bill on his own storefront. A for lease sign is hanging on the window right now where Hashstoria used to sit. Newark is looking for a new tenant. The doors are locked. The dream is dead in the water. And in case anybody in the back missed it, this eviction dropped in the exact same news window Charleston White got booked in Texas. 2 names. 2 men. 2 very public associations with Claressa Shields. 2 very public downfalls. Same month. Same week, if you look at it closely enough. When the smoke clears, you can call it coincidence if you want. You can call it timing. You can call it karma. You can call it the news cycle doing what the news cycle does. You can call it any name that makes you sleep easier at night. But you cannot look at that stack of evidence and tell me with a straight face that there is not a pattern here. Two-Tone said it first. Two-Tone said everybody that gets connected with Claressa Shields goes down. Two-Tone said it before there was a booking photo. Two-Tone said it before there was an eviction notice. Two-Tone said it before Latto took the walkout check. And Two-Tone is standing on that prophecy right now with his arms folded, silent, because the receipts are filing themselves faster than any of us can read them. Let me be very clear about one thing so nobody misquotes this segment and turns it into a headline that says the wrong thing. I am not saying Claressa Shields is cursing anybody. I am not saying Claressa Shields is running around at midnight lighting candles on somebody's roster. Claressa Shields is a boxer. Claressa Shields is a champion. Claressa Shields is one of the most decorated athletes in her entire sport, period, end of sentence. But something about the orbit around Claressa Shields keeps producing casualties, and at some point in the timeline the pattern stops being an accident and starts being an observation you can graph on a spreadsheet. Charleston White jumped in the ring to defend her. Charleston White ended up in a booking photo. Charlamagne gave her the softest chair in the studio. Charlamagne ended up on the wrong side of an eviction notice. Latto took the walkout check. Latto is now being fitted for a cancellation press release by the entire city of Atlanta. Papoose has taken so much collateral fire from this situation that Papoose has quietly stepped back from the front of Claressa Shields' brand rollout. Miss Shaikica caught heat from Charleston White for asking a normal follow-up question. Remy Ma keeps getting name dropped in a chapter she closed years ago. That is not one name. That is not 2 names. That is 6 names in one news cycle. 6. And here is the part that will really twist your ankle. Charleston White knew. Charleston White knew all of this was possible. Charleston White has been on tape mocking the entire hip-hop landscape by saying every man who ever crossed him in the culture has been handled. Charleston White said Soulja Boy got dealt with in the ring. Charleston White said DJ Academics got stripped naked on stage. Charleston White said Nipsey, the late Nipsey, was gone. Charleston White said everybody who ever pushed back on the hip-hop internet has caught something, some form of consequence, some form of receipt. And Charleston White said he, Charleston White himself, in the flesh, is the last untouchable man standing. Charleston White called himself the undefeated one. Charleston White called himself the bold one. Charleston White said he could hit a man with a flower pot on live television and walk away unbothered. Charleston White said even the biggest names in hip-hop are afraid to touch him because Charleston White will drop names on the way to the police station. And then Charleston White walked directly into a Collin County jail cell 3 weeks later like the universe had been reading his transcripts and was waiting for the applause line to end. Charleston White is not untouchable. Nobody on this earth is untouchable. Charleston White ran his mouth about Claressa Shields with the checkbook of a jealous ex-boyfriend. And Charleston White got the reverse blessing served warm on a silver platter with a side of civil paperwork. Now let me ask you something serious before we walk out of this room. Miss Shaikica caught it too, right? Miss Shaikica was collateral damage in this entire situation, and nobody is talking about that part loud enough. Because part of why Charleston White decided to burn his platform on the Claressa Shields defense was that Charleston White wanted to punish Miss Shaikica for asking Claressa Shields a normal, direct, non-inflammatory question on her morning show. Charleston White called Miss Shaikica a fat, messy host on national radio. Charleston White said Miss Shaikica had no room to be sassy. Charleston White said only messy people want to know about celebrity relationships in the first place. And then Charleston White turned around and made a full 15-minute segment about, you guessed it, a celebrity relationship. Charleston White made himself the exact messy person Charleston White was calling out. That is not analysis. That is a full public self-tag. That is Charleston White walking into a room, pointing at a mirror, and telling the mirror to sit down. And it lines up, doesn't it? It lines up with everything Charleston White has ever admitted about his own operation. Charleston White has said, on tape, that he is not here to educate. Charleston White has said he is not here for the community. Charleston White has said he is here to entertain and get paid. In that order, and everything else is optional. And nobody ever really believes a man when he tells you what he is. Charleston White told you. Charleston White told you 8 different ways on 8 different podcasts across 4 different years. And the internet kept giving Charleston White the microphone anyway. Well, the microphone has now been replaced by a booking sheet, and the audience has been replaced by a magistrate, and the podcast has been replaced by a public defender. Read it plain. There is another layer here that nobody is talking about loud enough, and this is where I want you to lean all the way in. The women in this story, Claressa Shields, Latto, Miss Shaikica, Remy Ma, every single one of them has been forced, at some point in the last 30 days, to sit in a chair and answer for a man's decisions. Claressa Shields has to answer for Papoose's marital status. Latto has to answer for 21 Savage's paperwork. Miss Shaikica has to answer for asking a question a man did not like. Remy Ma has to answer for a chapter she closed years ago and thought she could leave in the archive. And meanwhile, the men in the story, Papoose, 21 Savage, Charleston White, Charlamagne, they get to walk into any studio in the country, speak in half sentences, dodge the follow-ups, and reappear next week with a brand new sponsor. This is not a Claressa Shields problem. This is a media architecture problem. And Charleston White exploited that architecture perfectly to get himself trending for a full week, and the reverse blessing kicked his door in for the trouble. Let's talk about Papoose for a minute, because Papoose has been the quietest man in this entire hurricane, and that is fascinating in its own right. Papoose used to be everywhere. Papoose used to be the ring guy, the interview guy, the sticker on the shirt, the front and center guy, the Pap is right here guy. And then, quietly, over the last several months, Papoose started to fade to the background of Claressa Shields' entire content operation. Papoose stopped doing joint interviews. Papoose stopped showing up in the boxing footage. Papoose stopped appearing in the merchandise drops. Claressa Shields herself has publicly said her fans were starting to care more about Papoose than about her, and Claressa Shields did not enjoy that ratio. So Papoose stepped back. Papoose read the room. Papoose recognized, before anybody else in the frame, that the shadow contract was starting to include his name in the fine print, and Papoose said no thank you. That is what a smart man does when the reverse blessing shows up on the doorstep. A smart man takes a step back. A smart man lets somebody else fill the frame. A smart man stops signing the paperwork. Charleston White did not read the room. Charlamagne did not read the room. Latto, at least so far, has not read the room. And you can see the paperwork getting drawn up in real time on all 3 of their behalves. You can see it in the timestamps. You can see it in the booking sheets. You can see it in the eviction filings. You can see it in the Atlanta group chats. And while we are on the subject of who has been quiet and who has been loud, let's give Remy Ma a proper mention, because Remy Ma has been dragged into this storm without lifting a finger. Remy Ma closed her chapter with Papoose years ago. Remy Ma moved on. Remy Ma raised her kids. Remy Ma built a whole solo television and podcast career after that separation. And yet, every single time Claressa Shields sits down for an interview, Remy Ma's name gets pulled out of the archive and stapled to a headline like Remy Ma, is still an active party in the situation. That is another quiet casualty of the reverse blessing, reputational drag by association. Remy Ma did not ask for any of this. Remy Ma is not out here throwing shots. Remy Ma is not on any livestream calling anybody's name. And Remy Ma is still catching secondhand smoke from a fire she never set. That is the reach of this shadow contract. It does not just touch the people in the frame. It reaches the people who used to be in the frame and forgot to change their number. Now let me tie this back to the very beginning of the video, because I want you to see how tight the loop is. We open with Two-Tone. Two-Tone said everybody connected to Claressa Shields is going down. Two-Tone was not on television when he said it. Two-Tone was not on a major podcast. Two-Tone was on a live stream, in a room, with a phone, at maybe 10 in the evening, saying something the entire internet dismissed as a bar. And in the 24 weeks since that live stream, Charleston White has been booked 3 times. Charlamagne has been evicted. Miss Shaikica has been publicly shamed. Latto is in the middle of the biggest business decision of her career, and Papoose has quietly disappeared from the front page of Claressa Shields' brand. That is not a bar. That is a prophecy with receipts. So where does this leave us? Where does this leave the front row family? Where does this leave you, watching this video right now, deciding whether to hit the like button before the outro? Here is where I land, and I want you to sit with it for a minute. Claressa Shields is not going anywhere. Claressa Shields is going to keep winning fights, keep wearing "Pap is right here" stickers on her chest, keep sitting in front of every camera she can find, and keep telling on herself the way Claressa Shields always has. That is Claressa Shields' brand now. Radical honesty in a game that punishes it. And every man who tries to use Claressa Shields' name to farm engagement is going to catch what Charleston White caught. Every media outlet that tries to laundry cycle Claressa Shields into a soft interview is going to catch what Charlamagne caught. Every peer who takes the walkout check without reading the fine print is going to catch what Latto is about to catch. The shadow contract is real. The shadow contract keeps signing itself. The shadow contract does not require your consent. Latto, I am telling you as somebody who reads the room for a living. You have one shot to make the right decision here. You can walk Claressa Shields into that arena, take the check, smile for the cameras, and let Atlanta finish writing the cancellation press release. Or you can decline politely, cite motherhood, cite recovery, cite anything, and let this entire storm move past you. The choice is yours, Big Latto. But the receipts are already loading, the paperwork is already being drafted, and the news cycle does not care about your feelings. Charleston White, you called yourself untouchable in the same month that Collin County tapped you on the shoulder and asked for your fingerprints. Sit down, read a book, call your lawyer. Stop using black women as promotional currency for a platform you already admitted you built on trolling. And if you cannot do any of that, at least stop pretending you are surprised when the paperwork lands. You are not surprised. You know exactly what you signed up for. Charlamagne, pay your rent. That is the only note. Pay the rent. The rest is a conversation for you and your lawyer, your accountant, and whoever signed off on opening a dispensary 19 months in the red. That is not a Claressa Shields problem. That is a bookkeeping problem. But the timing of the eviction is a Claressa Shields problem, and you cannot outrun that timestamp no matter how many Breakfast Club episodes you drop next week. And Claressa Shields, the reverse blessing is not your fault, and I want to say that as clearly as I can, because the internet is going to try to spin this into a shame piece, and it is not a shame piece. The reverse blessing is not your fault, but it is your shadow. And the internet has finally noticed the shape of it. Handle it however you want to handle it. Ignore it if you want to ignore it. But know that we are all watching now, and every man who steps into the frame from this point forward is going to be scanned twice before he is allowed to shake your hand. Front row family, before you swipe out of this one, I need 3 things from you. Number 1, tell me in the comments if you think Latto walks Claressa Shields to that ring, or if Latto reads the room at the last second and steps back. Number 2, tell me if you think Charleston White ends this calendar year with more charges on his record or fewer. Number 3, the biggest one, tell me if you think Charlamagne's eviction is a coincidence, or if you think the shadow contract is real. Because the answer to that third question is going to decide who the next name on the list is, and I promise you, front row family, on my life, on my platform, on every receipt I have ever pulled, there is a next name. It is being written right now, and when we find out who it is, you already know where to come to hear it first. If this one hit the like button. If this one made you think, share it with the group chat, and start the argument yourself. If this one made you mad, subscribe and stay mad with us, because there is more where this came from. If this one made you feel seen as a black woman who has watched this exact pattern play out in your own life, in your own family, in your own friend group, hit that comment box and tell me your version. Turn the post notifications on so you catch the next update the exact second it drops. Because this story is not over, front row family. This story is barely at halftime, and we are just getting to the good part. If you want to send a super thanks, we appreciate every single one of them. We see every one. We read every note. We shout them out on the next stream. Slide into the comments and let's argue about it. Respectfully, of course, because this is a house of grown people. Because tonight we did not just spill the tea. Tonight we served the whole plate, with a napkin, with a garnish, with a full receipt attached to the side. And there are seats still open at this table. Somebody is going to sit down. Somebody is going to catch the shadow contract next. And when they do, you already know exactly where to come. See you in the next one, front row family. Stay woke, stay watching, stay ready, because the receipts, as always, are on the way.